Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for June's Stampin' Class by Mail. I'm Brenda Cardinal of stampintulip.stampinup.net, and I can't wait for you to make this month's cards featuring the In Good Taste suite of products by Stampin' Up. I've teamed up with fellow demonstrator Gina Wieselman to offer these monthly classes by mail. This month, it's Gina's turn to show you how to stamp and assemble your cards, and next month, it'll be my turn. Be sure to watch to the end of the video for a sneak peek of July's card designs and for some bonuses for signing up for the class. Have fun making your cards, and here's Gina.
Hi everyone, I'm Gina Wieselman of MySweetPaper.com, and I can't wait to show you how to stamp and assemble your 3 card designs using the In Good Taste suite from Stampin' Up. This suite is from the brand new 2020-2021 annual catalog and features some great coordinating products. From the suite, we'll be using the Tasteful Touches stamps, Tasteful Labels dies, Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder, In Good Taste elements, and the absolutely gorgeous In Good Taste Designer Series paper. In addition, we'll be using the tailored tag punch, Lovely Labels Pick-a-Punch, braided linen trim, and the brand new in color Bumblebee ink pad. If you ordered a kit from either Brenda or me, all of the punched, die cut, and embossed images will be included with your kit. Please reach out to Brenda or me if you need any supplies or if you'd like to learn more about becoming a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator or hosting an event. Let's get started. Our first card is the Night of Navy and Bumblebee floral card. If you purchased a class by mail kit, all of the parts and pieces are already cut down to size and sent to you. But if you are cutting for yourself, just pause the video here and cut to these measurements. To start with, I'm going to get out my yellow ink. And the reason I say yellow is because at the time of filming, I am using crushed curry right here. But I designed this card with the new Bumblebee color in mind. So I'm just stamping that wherever on this piece of cardstock. And then I'm going to put a flower on the inside of the card as well. If you wanted to stamp the envelope, this would be a great time to do that. Then I'm going to set aside those pieces and pull out the tag. And I punched this using the Lovely Labels Pick-a-Punch. This is probably one of my favorite items from the new annual catalog because it has 2 different patterns that you can punch on the end and 3 different sizes of cardstock that slide right in. So I've already punched this, but just to show you, this is a 1-inch piece and it slides into the punch so easily, which is amazing. So I'm going to get out my Night of Navy ink for this, and the Good Things in Life Are Better With You stamp. So I'm just going to ink that up. Target the center of this, and stamp. Now the next thing I'm going to do is start assembling. So I'm going to take my Whisper White cardstock, the thick Whisper White, and fold it in half along the score line with my bone folder. And then this Night of Navy piece was actually embossed using the Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder, which I love the subtle texture that it gives. I'm going to apply some snail adhesive, and I do like to be quite generous with my snail when I'm adhering something that is embossed. I just want to make sure it sticks perfectly. And I'm going to keep layering up. So next is this piece. This Designer Series paper is so pretty. And this is going in the center. So I'm looking to center left and right and top to bottom here. And then this piece that I cut using the Tasteful Labels dies. So again, I'm just going to use my snail and adhere. Now I do want to note, you're seeing that I'm using the snail adhesive here. This, as of June 3rd, is actually a retired item, but because of the timing of when I'm filming this video, I don't have my new Stampin' Seal yet. So hopefully you will be getting your brand new adhesive soon because it's good stuff. It's stronger than the snail. You get more in a package, which is awesome. Now I'm bringing back this piece that I stamped with the flower image, and I am going to fussy cut this. There isn't a die that coordinates with the image, but for one flower, I feel like fussy cutting is an okay solution. One thing, a tip that I use when fussy cutting, there's no magic bullet to make it super easy or fun or anything like that, but if you notice, I'm holding the scissors pretty stationary. I'm just cutting little by little, and it's the cardstock that I'm actually moving as I cut. So that the scissors pretty much just stays in one set position. And now I have this In Good Taste element, one of the large leaves, and I'm just going to take my glue dots and on the front of the leaf, so I can tell the front has that vein detail and the back doesn't. So on the front of it, I'm going to pick up a glue dot, and that's how I'm going to adhere it to the back of the flower. So I want to just kind of see what it looks like on here. Go like that. And then to adhere the flower to the card, I'm going to take dimensionals along there. And then of course, where I do have the leaf, I'm going to go back to glue dots. I don't want to add dimensionals because that would pop the leaf up even farther than the flower. So I'm just going to put a glue dot on either end of the leaf, and that will hold it in place. And then I can position that. And if you forget to peel off your release paper, I'm just going to add one more glue dot here. And now it's good. So I really played around with the placement of this greeting, and I ultimately decided that I liked it here on the front. But if you wanted to center this floral piece in the middle and either put this on the inside or just stamp directly on the inside, I definitely think that could work too. But for the time being, I'm going to make this up just as I did in the sample, positioning these toward the bottom since there is going to be some overlap with the flower. Peel off the release paper. And what I'm looking for here is I do want to see a little bit of the designer series paper underneath. And I almost forgot, but the very last piece to add are these little circular elements from the In Good Taste elements. And once again, I'm going to use a glue dot for this. You could certainly also use the liquid multi-purpose glue, but I find that these mini glue dots are about the perfect size, and this way I don't have to worry about any glue seeping out. I do want to really quickly show you the difference between the Crushed Curry and the Bumblebee ink colors. I really do like the Bumblebee here because it's not quite as bright as the Crushed Curry. It's almost more of a mustard color. So just to see what that looks like, there you go. Our second card design is this wonderful wood grain tag card. And this card uses a bunch of elements that I punched using the tailored tag punch. Again, if you're taking the class by mail, you'll get all of the parts and pieces pre-cut and sent right to your door. But if you need to cut things for yourself, here are the parts and pieces. As usual, I'm going to start with stamping first, and I'm going to use my early espresso ink for this greeting. I have the stamp that says "You are so special," and then this very vanilla tag that I've already punched out using the tailored tag punch. So I'm just going to ink up and center and stamp. It looks like I got a little bit close to the edge there, so of course I will just flip it over and give it a second shot. That's my freebie round. The next thing I'm going to do is bring out my very vanilla card base, and this is pre-scored. So I'm just going to take my bone folder and crease it. And then I have all of these wood grain pieces I punched out for you from the In Good Taste Designer Series paper. So as I'm placing these on the card, one of the big things that I want is to make sure that kind of the lighter shades and the darker shades are mixed up a little bit. So this is very much mimicking what I have in the sample of light and dark patterning. Of course, you could do whatever you like for arranging these. Now, I will note you received 8 of these, and if you look here, there's a tiny little bit that isn't covered in this corner. But with the excess from either this piece or this piece, there's more than enough to go and fill that in. So I'm going to position based on where I want my greeting. Right now, that's a little low for my liking, so I might just shift everything up a little bit. Okay. That looks better to me. Now for these pieces, I'm just going to start adhering them. So as I'm placing these, one big thing that I'm looking for is for these lines to be parallel to each other. As I get to the edge here, I'm only going to place my adhesive on the end that will be secured to the card. And I'm going for about equal distance between the tag punches. Okay, so now that these are all secured, I'm just going to bring out my paper snips, flip the card over, and start trimming along the edge. So I do that along both sides, and then of course I need to close the card and trim along the top. Now I am being very careful not to accidentally cut into the scored area on this card. So just going right along the edge. And of course I have some extra adhesive on these, so just get rid of those. And then with these 2 pieces that are left over, I can decide which I prefer for this section and just finish that one off. Now for placing the braided linen trim, all that I did was wrap it around my fingers once, and it kind of shakes out to look almost like a figure 8 in doing that. And then position that on the back of this punched tag. And now what I'm going to do is actually secure the ribbon or the linen trim right to the back of my tag using dimensionals. Normally, I would not use quite so many dimensionals, but I want to make sure that I'm super generous with this because it's holding the ribbon in place as well as securing the tag and the ribbon to the card. So I'm going to use more than I normally would, and I like to pull on the ends, not hard, but just gently, and make sure that it's completely secured before I peel off the backing and stick it to my card. That looks great. And then you can trim the braided linen trim to the length that you like. And of course, the finishing touch here is a couple of these elements from the In Good Taste elements. I punched them out of this sheet right here. So to apply these elements, you could use a couple of different adhesives. This is a glue dot, and I find that is pretty darn easy for attaching these pieces. So I'm just going to pick up a glue dot and secure to the card. You could certainly use the liquid multi-purpose glue, but I find that the glue dots work well enough, and they're mostly hidden. There's a tiny bit that sticks out, but I couldn't glue precisely enough to minimize that anyway. So this is what works for me. And here are the parts and pieces for this card. So first things first on this card, I'm going to do all my stamping with my Pretty Peacock ink pad. And I'm going to start with this label piece that I cut out for you from the Tasteful Labels dies. So I'm just going to ink up my You Are the Best stamp, center that, and stamp it. Looks good. The other stamping that I need to do is feathers. Now there's kind of a random feather pattern on the outside, and just to make the inside complementary, I also stamped a feather there. So again, using the Pretty Peacock, I'm going to ink up. And then for this panel, just going to be a little bit random with how I stamp it. And that's all of the stamping for this card. Now the assembly for this is pretty fun, and if you are cutting this yourself, on this card base piece, I took a full 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock and I scored it in half in both directions. So at 4 1/4 and at 5 1/2, and then I cut it from one diagonal to the other. From that point, it's pretty easy to get this card how you like it. You're just going to score along both of the score lines, and that will give you this fun fold. The next thing I want to do is add my designer series paper to this very front flap. I absolutely love the reverse side of this designer series paper. It was hard for me to cover that up, but I'll find some other fun way to use it. And then as I do this, I'm just looking for an equal border on the left and bottom. This seam will most likely get covered up depending on how you choose to put your card together, but more about that in a second. The other thing I'm going to do right away, just since it's here and easy, I'm going to adhere the inner plate to the inside of the card base. There we go. Okay. Now, the next part that we're going to do is these diagonal strips. And this is where I definitely want to use my liquid multi-purpose glue. So I've had this glue resting so that the glue comes down to the tip. And I'm just going to come right along the edge here and add some of the glue. And then I'm going to go from one corner to the other and lightly press, and then just open it up and make sure that it's an even amount of the strip showing. And then I'm just gonna really press on that so that it starts to set before I do my next step. What I'm going to do is flip the card over and then use my paper snips along the back side to square off the corner in both directions. There we go. Now, this is where you have some options. You could absolutely add another strip, and that is how the kit was designed. I will say matching it up isn't my favorite thing to do, but I actually do really love how it looks like this. So if you wanted to add this piece and have kind of the designer series paper black and then the pretty peacock and more black stripes, I think that looks fantastic. Since I want to show you the way that I did in the sample, which also is the more difficult way, I'm going to do that on this card. But once again, I'm just going to take my multi-purpose liquid glue and just kind of trail a thin line along the way. And now this time when I'm positioning the skinny strip, I am actually matching it up with the strip underneath along the edge. And that is my placement guide here, because I want to make sure that when the card comes completely closed, it looks like just one solid strip. Once again, then I will take my paper snips and trim that up, and on the bottom as well. The next step I'm going to do is adhere this stamped panel to the pretty peacock cardstock, just centering it on all sides. And then I'm going to put that on the card. Now, one thing to note, when I'm positioning this, I don't want to get adhesive on this half because then my card will be stuck closed. I'm also going to use my dimensionals to give it just a little bit of pop. So if I look at where it's at, I can kind of get an estimate for how much is on the front, and then I'm going to, using that in my mind, add maybe 4 dimensionals just right along that diagonal. So I will remove the release paper and then aim for centering top and bottom, left and right. Okay, so far so good. And now I'm going to assemble this greeting. So you'll notice these are the same size. They're both cut using the Tasteful Labels dies, but what I really want is just a border of black at the top and bottom. So I'm just going to come along, cut it approximately in half horizontally, Doesn't have to be perfect because the only part that's going to show is just the very end. Add some snail, and then I'm going to just line it up and secure both ends. This is a technique for using punches that I love because it allows me to set this apart a little bit more so the white on white doesn't blend in as much, but it's a really quick and easy way to do that. Now, if you look at this element from the In Good Taste elements, you might notice it looks like I used 2 of them here. Well, that is actually not the case. When I was punching one of these out from the wood piece that they come in, I accidentally broke it. And I decided that I actually liked it broken in 2 pieces because it allowed me to have a little bit more balance to the card by bringing in these wood elements on both sides without requiring using 2 whole elements. So what I'm going to do is just come in again with my glue dots, and again on the front side, pick up a dot, and I'm making sure to hide the kind of fractured part of the element. And then same with the other broken half. And add that up a little further. There we go. Now, once again, like we saw in our first card design, since we're adhering something with 2 different layers or 2 different dimensions, I'm going to use my dimensionals on the black and white. I'm going to be generous again. And then I'm going to use my glue dots on these wood pieces that are already thicker and have more dimension. So I'll just pull up 1 for the smaller piece, and I might use a couple for the larger piece. There we go. And the last thing is to push this in place. And there we have it. And of course, I made some additional card samples so you can see other ways of using the In Good Taste suite of products. So this is the first extra sample. I decided to use the feather image on this, and I just loved the petal pink coloring to this textured piece. The next sample here uses Blackberry Bliss. And again, the texture in the designer series paper, it looks like tile in a shower or something. And so I loved bringing out the basic gray color that's in there. Next up is a design that is Rococo Rose in color, and again combines some of the designer series paper. In this case, kind of this textured paint appearance with some of the wood grain on either side. And it is Father's Day coming up soon, so I decided to use the new Best Year stamp set for this design. And so the outside says, "To the world you are a dad, to me you are the world," and the inside says, "Happy Father's Day." And one cool thing that I did with this one, it looks like I used one large piece of the designer series paper and then a smaller piece, but I actually used the stitched rectangles dies, and I cut this chunk out of the middle of the bigger piece. And in doing that, by lining it or backing it with some early espresso cardstock, I was able to save a little bit on paper, and I only needed to cut out the one big piece. And finally, the last design is a lot of tone on tone using the brand new In Color Misty Moonlight. So for this card, all of the stamping is done in that Misty Moonlight color, but I brought in the Balmy Blue on the coloring and the Seaside Spray on the paper backing, and I thought those colors looked really beautiful together. Thanks for participating in this month's Stampin' Class by Mail, and here's Brenda.
Thanks for showing us how to make those lovely cards, Gina. If you received a class kit from either Gina or me, make sure to follow the link in the email that shared this video with you for a specially curated Pinterest page to show you even more fun ways to use your In Good Taste supplies. July is my turn to design and share the cards with you, and I'm excited to show you a sneak peek of the 3 card designs featuring the brand new Flowers for Every Season suite from Stampin' Up's 2020-2021 annual catalog. One of the cards features a fun fold. This new suite is all about the brand new 2020-2022 in colors. The in colors include Bumblebee, Cinnamon Cider, Just Jade, Magenta Madness, and Misty Moonlight. From the Flowers for Every Season suite, we'll be using the Jar of Flowers stamp set, the Jar Punch, the Flowers for Every Season Designer Series paper, the Flowers for Every Season ribbon combo pack, the Mason Jar Shaker Domes, and the Flowers for Every Season gems. I'll also be using the stitched shaped dies and the Tasteful Textile 3D embossing folder. All the die cut and embossed cardstock will be provided with your kit if you ordered it from Gina or me. The registration deadline for this class is July 5th, 2020. However, we have a little something extra if you register with either Gina or me by June 27th, 2020. If you register by that date, we'll include 2 extra completed cards with envelopes with your July kit. We also have a referral bonus if you find new friends to take our Stampin' Class by mail. Be sure to check out your email from Gina or me to learn more about this. If you're not already on one of our email lists, please reach out to Gina or me or visit one of our websites so we can get you added to our email list to share more about this and other fun stamping opportunities. Please let us know if you have any feedback on our Stampin' Class by mail. And until we see you next month, happy stamping!